we're back with another episode of Natural AF Podcast. I've got my good friend here, Chance, the God Tiger Bear, Garton of the InnerVerse Podcast. Dude, how you been, man?
Oh man, you outed me. I haven't made any official bear name claims, but yeah, I like that one. Who knows though?
It could
Could
change.
change.
It is a God Tiger thing, so it can do whatever it wants.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, dude. It's been cool to be friends and know you, and I've been looking forward to having a recording together.
Yeah, man. Dude, it was cool meeting you at the Bertaria Festival, and then I got to hang out with you again over at Music and Sky, and hopefully repeat that same thing this year. So I'll be out there in August at the Music and Sky thing, and then again in September.
Oh yeah, it's kind of reverse order this time.
Yeah, yeah.
Bertaria.
Keep you on your toes.
Did you donate enough money to throw tomatoes at Owen's face?
No, no, that was not me.
Me neither, but I can't wait to see that.
Hopefully it goes down. I feel like it dropped off. I don't know, but I'm sure no one is going to forget. Owen's like an elephant. He never forgets.
Yeah, man. So it's cool that you're doing a show now. So, show me around. What do we do here?
Dude, this is pretty simple, but the whole thing is natural AF. So I my spirit animal is like my like a 1980s Sylvester Stallone who's like really into health and like, you know, sky clock gravy and all that. That's where I derive some of this spirit from. But I'm really interested in just the deeper aspects of holistic health. Or my last guest, Lisa Rose, was talking about regenerative fitness, which is a really cool concept. But yeah, I'm a big into weightlifting. I'm a blue collar dude, military dude, but somehow dropped in and found my way to exploring all kinds of things with you, like sound healing techniques, um, exploring thoughts, vibrations, the aspects of water. This fourth phase of water concept has really got me going. Um, and then for you, like, man, I don't know where you want to start, but like, I'm really curious how you got to where I'm sure I've heard it before, but this biofield tuning thing, how did you get from one, like introduce whoever you were like in high school just for fun? And then how did you get to like biofield tuning and Qigong now?
Against all odds, I made it.
Nice.
Yeah, man, it's cool that we're gonna get into this. I always enjoy talking to somebody who's also had a tuning experience, and so
Mm,
did your wife. So,
yeah.
be curious to hear a little bit of feedback, how that's been, how any personality shifts or adjustments have gone since then. But me in high school was pretty cocky, thought I knew everything. My passions were video games and journalism. I did like the
Mm,
school newspaper. I thought I was awesome because I was a junior who got to be the editor in chief of the school newspaper. Did a little bit of sticking it
yeah.
to the man,
Nice.
writing articles that made the principals mad. And I was an athlete, yeah, but kind of just sort of a lazy athlete.
Yeah.
Just
What'd
my
you play?
friends were doing it. I did football and track, and
Oh, cool.
that was pretty much it by the end. I actually got an injury when I was 17,
Mm,
and that took me out of sports, and I focused more on the journalism stuff. Went to college. I was raised in, your basic white Anglo-Saxon Protestant type of household, and got a bit black pilled by finding out the all the stuff that was in that Zeitgeist movie back in '07 when I was a senior in
mm,
high school.
yeah.
Turned me off to all things religion. Funny because that documentary actually did reveal some helpful info about like that all the different savior deities that mirror the Christ mythos, and that was
Yeah.
my cue to actually throw everything out and assume atheism was the way. That didn't work out too well at all. So after the first year of college, I was pretty overweight, just playing World of Warcraft all the time, skipping class. And long story short, I found my way into some meditation as a practice that helped me lose some weight. Started smoking cannabis that also
Mm,
helped me reduce stress, drop some toxic relationships. Got through school, didn't know what I wanted to do. Went back and worked for the mom and dad company.
Where'd you go to
And
school at?
I went to Mizzou.
So you've been like, so all this is kind of taking place in Missouri.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Right
yeah.
on.
Mizzou's not that far, couple 3 hour drive from where I was born and raised, and now I'm back there actually, same spot. Turned out
Nice.
to be the smartest place to be incarnated and stick around ever, because now like we got Gardner out here, Marty's moving out here,
Oh,
my buddy
really?
Kyle from Tippecanoe Herbs is moving out here,
Nice.
and probably more people. And we have the Bear Tarrier campgrounds like an hour from my house, so things are great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's picking up, picking up. Yeah. So
And
you were
yeah,
going
I
into,
found out about qigong while I was
oh, yeah.
really into music festivals,
Okay.
and I was going to music festivals. Found crystals at vendors and things there. Sort of woke me up to the subtle energy, picking up crystals and being like, "Wow, actually, holding it up to my head. Wow, I actually feel something.
Hmm.
What is this?" And that got me curious, and played around with energy healing type practices, helping people come out of bad trips using intention and eye contact and
Hmm.
chi or prana. I didn't really know anything about anything, but I did have a funny experience for about a year where I like temporarily had all the sort of inner knowing and abilities of my current self back when like 10 years ago. I
Yeah.
temporarily had like this stint as a sort of music festival shamanic healer guy, and that was cool. It showed me sort of the path I wanted to go. I realized something in me was designed or intentionally, aligned with the practices of energy healing, but I didn't really have a lot of knowledge or technique, so I had to sort of go back and build up those foundations. But that took me it was a circuitous path. I wound up realizing I wanted to do a podcast and started messing around with that, and stuck at it longer than anything I'd ever stuck at in my life before. And eventually, now it's doing
Nice.
well and I'm able to support myself on that. But
Yeah. You're
back in
doing a great job with
2019,
it. Yeah.
in 2019, I picked up the Tuning the Human Biofield book by Eileen Day McCusick after hearing
Mm.
her on a couple of podcasts. And, you know, actually, I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. They were describing a set of courses they wanted to take, and they were going to need to travel and do some in-person stuff. And they were being recommended to buy a very expensive set of titanium tuning forks. And
Mm.
I tried to, advise them, you might be, and this may be something that someone out there needs to hear, but you might be actually doing the thing where you sort of stall for time with this idea
Ah.
of perfectionism being an avenue for procrastination, in the sense that, to really find out if you want to do something like tuning as a practice or an energy work practice, and work with other people on it. To me, it makes a lot more sense to just start with an inexpensive set, decent tuning forks. I recommend the website Omnivos,
Mm.
OMNIVOS, or Medivibe, MEDIVIBE. Those are some good tuning forks. Or there are great tools over at the Biofield Tuning Store that
Big
Eileen
fan.
McCusick
Yeah.
runs. They're a little more expensive. They're nicer tools. They'll last longer. But
Is that one on your desk there to your left?
yeah, it is.
Nice.
It's the
That's
Sonic
the
Slider.
slider.
That's where people should start. That's where I started,
I
actually,
still haven't
just
picked
working on
one up, but
myself.
I'm really curious about it because like I have this thing with my left side that's still ongoing. It's getting better though. There's a little bit of purging going on, but like um I have like those like bumps where you get like the lymphatic little things. They're all on my left side. And so
Hmm.
I'm thinking sonic slider, just put it on there a couple times a day and work it out. But
That'll do it. I think that'll do it. It helped
yeah.
me a lot. I had a left shoulder injury that wouldn't go away for months and months. And then I got one of these sonic sliders and started putting it on there. And within a couple of days, I could raise my arm over my head again and could start
Yeah.
doing exercise that required the left shoulder. And everything was better quick. But I've talked about this before. I didn't know that after starting to use the sonic slider on my shoulder, I would end up also discoupling from a very unhealthy relationship I had going on in my
Interesting.
first marriage. And so, anyway, watch out. If you're going to heal your body, there are going to be things in your external life that will have to also change and shift, and maybe not what you thought or expected. But anyway, the thing I was trying to make a point about to wrap that up is I think people should just learn about tuning from maybe watching videos and reading
Hmm.
things that aren't that expensive before you make a huge investment. Because I I don't say that you shouldn't go get a course and a certification. If you've got the means and you're that gung ho, definitely do that. That's fine. But don't let the whole mountain of like it costs so much to do this certification and I need these really expensive tools. Don't let that stall you out from starting.
Yeah.
That's really what I want people to get, because I was able to figure out my way of doing it just by reading a couple of books and getting a set of forks and practicing on some friends until I felt
Yeah.
confident to start offering it to more people.
Dude, it's amazing how intuitive this stuff can be. Like I just heard from talking to Eileen McCusick a little bit at the Music and Sky about the vocal toning that she
She's
was
the
going to.
coolest.
Dude, and just hearing some of the stories about vocal tuning and toning or however they say it. Um, I came back home and I've been going through my own healing journey and emotional journey. Um, you know, combining the physical where the physical is manifesting symptoms because of what's going on emotionally and energetically. It's all very, very real. And like I had these chronic, like bad stomach pains for a while, and I was so fed up with it. But then I started toning, like singing and doing different either the ohm or hue, and then pausing in the different vocal like mouth positions of hue until I found something that started to feel better in my stomach. I just literally sat on my floor and just was like singing those sounds, and the pains went away. And it was like severe. It was like bad shit. So I was like blown away by that.
Where did you pick? First of all, that's awesome. You just
Yeah.
demonstrated exactly what we have the power to do
Yeah.
with our voice and our bodies and our attention. So that is freaking sweet. I actually think you can totally get your biofield all worked out just with your own voice if you, and actually playing around with it is a big part of it. The
Hmm.
play part is totally acceptable. But where did you pick up hue? Where does that come from?
That came from Kim Anami. So she does like holistic sex coaching, health, like s- sex gravy, and it's cool. Like it's it's really a fascinating her show. But um,
Sex gravy, combining food and sex like George Costanza's ultimate dream.
yeah, yeah, you just pour it all over each other. It's a great lubricant.
Not too hot.
Yes, yeah, yeah, cool little bit.
Well,
Um,
I just wanted to point out how interesting it is, the word hue.
mm,
I mean, we're humans, right?
yeah, yep.
The Are you familiar with the IHS that they put on like the cross and
Hmm.
stuff, and more in
It's
Catholicism, but you'll see that in Protestant churches too.
yeah, it's like a Templar thing, I think, right?
Oh, it's way older than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So IHS turns out, that's supposed to represent Jesus. They say
Yeah.
it's like uh something Jesus hominum salvator or something like that,
Hmm.
because the Greek spelling of Jesus starts with an I typically.
Yeah.
But that's actually way older than Jesus. And well, unless you realize that Jesus is not as new as 2000 years ago.
Hmm.
The IHS was a monogram for Bacchus before it was Jesus's monogram.
Oh, okay.
And in the Greek, that was represented with the letters upsilon, eta, sigma. Upsilon is a funny letter, doesn't perfectly translate from Greek to English alphabets, but one possible transliteration would make it an I. And then the eta is either an E or an H. And then sigma is S. So
Is the
IHS,
Upsilon this like thing,
that's
or
a
is that
sigma, actually.
okay? So
But you got it. That is a Greek letter. It's one of the three we're talking
one
about. So
popped into my head. I have that brain cell working.
upsilon kind of looks like a mix between a V and a U in the English
Oh, okay.
alphabet. But yeah, the transliteration of this upsilon eta sigma could give you the word phonetically hue, like Hue. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah. Or like whenever they mistake it. Whenever
Okay.
they made mistakes copying things from the ancient past, whenever they're setting up their whole rebranding thing that we call the Roman Empire, Holy Roman Empire.
Right.
So anyway, Hugh is Bacchus, is Jesus, and
Hmm.
you could also transliterate that to yes, like yes, which I find interesting because yes is it's the affirmative. It's a very solar word. It's like The sun is saying yes to all of us all the time, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that hue word I think has some ancient mystical meaning for sure. Even that we're called human is interesting. It's like we're Jesus's men or Bacchus's men.
Yeah. Dude, that's what I love about you, dude. Like, I mean, among other things, but you're big into linguistics and you know your shit. And I love it because I'm a bit of a
I just
linguist
know the things I
myself.
know. There's a lot more to know.
Dude, I was fascinated um with Russian at an early age, ever since I saw Rambo 3. And that's directly correlated to why I went into the military. 'Cause I wanted to learn Russian.
Did you learn Russian?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I did 6 months in it was the special operations language training, SALT. And yeah, I still
Dude,
speak it,
you
still
could be
practice it.
teaching me some stuff. I think there's a huge untapped gravy mine on
Yeah.
Russian mythology, Russian literature, and how you could syncretize that to the the stuff that we're more likely to run into being from the Greek or Latin roots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating because like I'm looking at the Greek and some, not all, there's a few letters in Greek that are the same sort of phonetic sound in Russian. They have this weird like it's like a circle with a line through it that's like an F. I don't know if that's similar
Oh,
in
that's a
Greek.
phi in Greek, which is our ph.
Yeah, yeah. So in Russia, that's an F or a F, you know,
Oh man, sounds like maybe they got their whole thing set up by the same Holy
yeah.
Sailor Maritime Empire. Yeah,
For the
that's
people
phi.
that can see this on the video, yeah, it's a circle with a line through it. It looks like a butt with a tail hanging out of it. I don't know. Whatever.
I got to look into the Russian alphabet now. All right.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I love it because it's very there's none of these dumb games that English plays where there's all these silent letters and stuff. It's pretty much there's a couple of like little lowercase b looking things that are just there to kind of like tell you whether it's a hard or soft sound, but pretty much everything is pronounced exactly how it's spelled. So,
Well, even Russian as a word is interesting to me. First of all, Rus is like
yeah.
red, right? We they're the red army, the red scare, all that stuff was going on, and
Yeah.
it's been a long time that the red man has been the bad guy or the boogeyman in
Mm,
various culture wars and empire propaganda narratives. Like the Gauls, for example, who are the ancient Celts. They
mm.
were the word Gaul is basically the same as a French word meaning red, ghoul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then the the Native Americans, the Redskins, they're the bad guys.
Those are my
Actually, there's
people.
way more than that. I've done maybe a more comprehensive dig on that in the past, so there's nothing else coming to mind. But Rus, R-U-S,
Mhm.
if you put that boustrophodon and read it right to left, you get Sir,
Mm.
and Sir is Surya, the sun in Hindu mythology. You have the Phoenician capital of Sur, which is spelled Tyre, so it's a little weird, but that's also very similar to the name that they call their rulers, the Tsar, Sir,
Yeah.
Tsar. Sir can also mean rock. It's also the root of like serpent. And anyway, it goes on and on, but like Russia as a name, I think there's like a huge amount of reveal just in that if you sort of play with the letters and know what you're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. The Ruski, Rasi. Um, what was it the Boustrophodon? What does that mean?
That's when a language is read from right to left instead of left to right, like English.
Okay.
And it's very valuable to look at words forwards and backwards that way because, well, first of all, the Greeks, for example, they
Mm.
switched between the two styles at different points in history. And Hebrew is written that way. A lot of things that were sort of transcribed from one culture or civilization to another. If one was right to left and the other was left to right, then sometimes the transliteration to the other culture ends up backwards or something
Mm.
like that. So that's why like the Rus and Sir is a very valid way of looking at things. And in general, looking at root words that way will sort of show you more of what they're connected to, the left to right, right to left, and then also getting an idea of what letters might interchange with other letters. Like an example that has been on my mind a lot lately that I guess I didn't think about as much as I could have until the last few days is the letter H is depending on who you are talking to,
Mm.
it might be a very soft aspiration. Or like if you were Greek, you would actually just leave it out. Like the Greeks don't call Hermes, they say Hermes.
Mm.
But more of an Arabic speaker, for example, they would be like Hermes,
Right.
and lots of places would. So in
Yeah,
translating from
Russia.
one language
Yeah.
to another, the H can easily become like more of a CH sound, or then just a K, or if C can make a hard K sound, but also it can be a soft like S sound. So the letter H, when you see it, you can basically swap it with an E, or you can swap it with a C or a CH or a K and see where it takes you. And an
Mhm.
example of this would be like, what are horses known for having? What is a horse's hair like? It's coarse.
Mm.
So you
Yes.
swap the H with the C, and the horse hair is coarse hair. And then
Mhm.
you think about what do we say whenever our throats are dry and scratchy? We say our throat feels hoarse.
Mhm.
But why would our throat feel hoarse? It's actually that our throat feels coarse, right?
Yeah.
But it's somehow like throughout
That's
time we've sort of
interesting.
just
Yeah.
adopted that funny phraseology, but it probably stems from the C, H, and H being pretty much interchangeable. So you start getting a few of those keys to play with letters and words with, and a lot becomes more evident to you.
And
And
this,
whenever you have an
yeah.
example like the horse course thing, it's a good one because it shows just how valid those letter interchanges can be for, showing you the meaning of something.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The whole horse thing is interesting to me. I grew up with horses, and this kind of takes us back into like the health sector because I think I'd mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned in our biofield tuning thing that had like a horse allergy or cat allergy. I'm not sure about whether or not my horse allergy is gone now or not, but like um the um the idea that your allergies aren't like sorry, this is like way out, but like the allergies are due not to like a histamine and immune little imaginary like thing floating through your system that decides that you're now allergic to something, but it's from a life experience or a life event. um it's I think it's cool to ask you about that, just bringing this up, it feels right, but like what do you think about that with like allergies and whether it's dealing it with biofield tuning or um resolving the emotional conflict like in German new medicine and healing it? Like, do you have any experience with that or heard anybody healing their allergies?
I've done it.
Dude, perfect.
I couldn't tell you exactly what the magic bullet was, but my whole life I have had, or I used to have pretty significant allergies to like everything in
Mm,
nature. Pick up a cat, I would have like red, itchy splotches wherever my skin touched the cat. And there's so many factors, right? I actually noticed I had a little bit of irritation from picking up my parents' cat, but they probably use like weird kitty litters, and they're feeding
mm.
the cat weird stuff. And
Maybe a
anyway,
flea collar or something.
but it was very minor, like a mild little irritation, and it went right away. But anyway, I was allergic to pollen and plants and all types of animals and pretty much the whole nine. So most of my
Mm,
life, I was a huge mouth breather because like there was nothing happening with my nose.
yeah,
It was
dude,
only
same.
out, things coming out,
Yeah.
not going, no air going in. And I adopted a vegan diet for a little while, kind of got on the bandwagon ideologically with that. This was probably like 2015. And I lasted on that for about 5 years. And the first couple of years were actually great.
Mm,
I felt very strong and healthy. But then as time went on, it got harder and harder to feel like I was strong. And like in the
yeah.
gym, I was getting zero gains, like plateaued completely no matter what I did.
Right.
So, and I no longer do a vegan diet, but at some point in the 5 years that I was one, and by the way, I figured out from going vegan that it was definitely dairy that was causing me all the problems. So when
Mm,
I took dairy out of my diet, I was no longer, pretty quickly, like within a month, I was no longer having the allergies to nature and to animals and everything like that. So that was really, I was super sold on veganism because of the allergies going away. It's like, oh my
right.
gosh, I can breathe through my nose. This is a whole new life.
For sure.
And when I brought meat back in, I didn't do dairy right away, and I was still scared of it.
Mm.
And I don't know, this probably been just about 3 months, but something told me, and I'd been, doing tuning sessions for people for a year, and I'd done a lot of that kind of work on myself as well. And something just told me, like, maybe at this point, the allergy to dairy is more like a belief than a reality. And I just went for it, rolled the dice, started eating some dairy, and everything is fine. If it's not very clean food, I might
Mm.
get a little bit of boogers out of it. My
Right.
like body is still giving me a little bit of like a pushback, like, hey, don't like this so much. But generally speaking, it's no longer a problem. So I couldn't say exactly what the solution was, other than I think if people were willing to do like some major reduction in what they are eating to like even a temporary vegan diet, maybe,
Yeah.
and or just like organic vegetables and like local grass-fed and organic meats. Definitely
Yeah.
like try
Do you
taking
do
dairy
raw?
out if you haven't. And then uh internal cleansing protocols like a colon cleanse, a liver cleanse, kidney cleanse. Those are things that I've done a few times. And working on your energy field balance. And
Yeah.
then that's going to reveal to you some of the I feel a little hypocritical, actually. I haven't really received a lot of tunings. I've done a lot,
Mm.
and I have a pretty good idea of the biofield anatomy. So like if something goes on in my body, I get the memo. But I'd kind of like a taste of my own medicine someday, where somebody was able to sort of do the party trick and show me things from certain time periods where certain type of feelings came up,
Mm.
so that I could maybe connect dots that I haven't connected. So I wouldn't say that I'm perfect or enlightened or ascended or anything, but
Yeah.
the point being, if you're able to connect back to the dots between like why certain things have gone on in your life and how that connects to when you were very young, it can make a huge difference in what your body decides to express to you, because it's like you got the message. And
Yeah.
I tell my clients a lot, GI Joe says knowing is half the battle, but in tuning, knowing is pretty much the whole battle.
Nice.
And I've had some interesting ones lately with people who had like growth type anomalies going on in their body, like a lipoma on the lower back for one guy. And that was related to, he thought, betrayal from an ex-wife that was
Mm.
kind of gnarly, and some friends. So, and he was coming to the whole thing with an awareness of this lipoma is kind of like a shield so that I don't get stabbed in the back again.
Ah, okay.
And then it actually, we were able to dig deeper and find out that, actually, as soon as I put the forks in his field, I realized, oh, you had reluctant parents whenever, and I asked him, like, were they really young, like 18 or younger when they had you? And yes, that was the case. So we had
Mm.
reluctant parents. They didn't want the baby. They were scared of the responsibility and all that, which turns out that can be a huge indication of later problems in life. So in the case of this client, it was like, as soon as he was born as a baby, he felt betrayed by the people closest to him,
Yeah.
because they were putting forth the energy of like not 100% or maybe not very much at all wanting him. And it's not a judgment on people's parents. I mean, it would be hard to have kids
Yeah.
as a 17 or 18-year-old. I get it. I do get that.
Yeah.
But I had a similar recent client where for this individual, it was like a goiter type thing on the neck. It was pretty large too. And it wasn't getting worse or anything. He hadn't gone to conventional doctors. And I was like, good move. I would just rather hang out with a goiter rather than let them like poke at it and slice it open and give drugs or whatever they would do. So
Yeah.
anyway, it was a similar situation, reluctant parents, and a little more specific things pertaining to communication for him is why it showed up where it did for him. And that was an interesting one, because it turned out that, and this is the weird stuff that you can find out with tuning, like, and I'll let people in on like a trick
Mm.
that I've been doing a lot more recently, that sort of allows the party trick of psychic knowing of something about somebody to be more specific and mind-blowing. Is a lot of times now I will, before the session or sometime during it, I'll draw a couple of tarot cards off of my Rider Waite traditional tarot deck with the question of what were mom and dad like when this person was born or when they were pregnant with him or them. And it's like on the money every time. I say on the money because in a recent session, as an example, the reason why the parents weren't fully invested in like being energetically there for this individual as a baby was because they were like super focused on money and material gain and all that, to the level of stressing themselves out over it, overworking over it, and etc., which ended up being like a family generational pattern that went back multiple generations. And that shows up in the biofield too, which is interesting. There's like a specific zone called the ancestral river where if I get like a strong hit off of it and it won't move, and I usually know like, oh, this is an ancestral river thing. So the tarot cards kind of gave me a clue about that situation, because when I drew them, it was a reversed Ace of Pentacles and a reversed Hierophant. Hierophant is a Taurus card, so in context with the other one, it really makes a lot of sense that maybe the assessment would be something to do with money, because the pentacles and the earth element are all about money. So that's something people can do. It's not like you have to do that with clients, and with any energy medicine practice, you actually could incorporate divinatory tools like that to help you with the figuring out specific details. And it's really works. It's 100% of the time when I've used tarot cards like that, the assessment was accurate 100% of the time. Now the question might come up like, how do I know what the tarot cards mean? Or with something like the Hierophant, there's so many possible meanings, and your intuition is a good guide for all that. But I also really like there's an ebook called Path of the Fool by Michael Tessarion.
Yeah.
And it's just the meanings of the cards of the major and minor arcana, but in a very nicely organized list of possibilities where it's like the full range of possibilities that are very specific and situational. So you look at that and you're like, oh, it's not going to mean all of these things, but that's where your intuition can kind of give you a hit. You look at the list of possibilities and you're like, oh, I think it's that. And then, you go from there.
Yeah, dude. And I'm always trying to like imagine ways that this leads back to other sectors of maybe the population or whoever, or people's experiences and uses for it. It's like where is this useful? Like in a funny version is like that movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, where I could almost picture, because this stuff, for people that are maybe skeptical or on the fence about this stuff is real. I can't fully explain why or how, except waveform mechanics and Chance can explain how and why this stuff is what it is and what it works. Some people are like, it's demons giving you this power and insight. And I'm like, they're real if you think they are, but this stuff is like the soup.
I'll just say, I ask God to run the show every time I do it.
Yeah.
Before we get in and with them and everything. So
these things go back a long time, and they've been used by wicked people. They've been used by people with good intentions. And that's that's just the way
the whole Hollywood
is.
And religious narrative of like God versus Satan and good guy versus bad guy is also a problem, because in real life, nobody is all the way good and nobody is all the way evil. So that entire paradigm kind of falls apart when confronted with the truth.
Yeah. And then, Christians do this all the time. And like, I'm Christian adjacent or a Christian. It's just the word itself is, none of them really know what it means or like where it comes from.
And the word Christian is actually a corruption of the original word. Exactly. But I'll let you finish your point and I can explain that if you want.
Well, like, so basically just fundamentally, like, how is this thing useful? And I was getting on the joke about the Men Who Stare at Goats in a military aspect, having this like hippie, like long hair braid dude go in and they're trying to interrogate somebody. You could just like pull some tarot cards, read his biofield, and you'd know a lot about the guy, but on a more, non-combat related version of that, knowing yourself, knowing your children can be really helpful. I have a teenage daughter. She's 19. I had her when I was 18. And eventually, I'm totally like fine with her intuition saying yes or no, whether she wants to participate in various readings or different things. But and we haven't had any like real drama between me and her. But for other parents with teenagers where there is like a lot of butting heads, drama, internal strife between marriage partners or boyfriend, girlfriend, you're not outsourcing this from God. You're taking this to God with the tools that I believe that He allowed to exist and put here for us to use in order to navigate relationships, problems, ourselves, and to get to know ourselves better. I think with the intention of being able to get to know the Father or God better. That's the way I look at it, and it's not. It's like attention or intention and attention at the end of the day is what matters.
I love it, man. There's so much there we could talk about, but
Mm.
my current understanding of like why tools like biofield tuning are actually effective, especially weird that it works remotely, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do like almost all my sessions are remote,
it's really cool.
including the one we did. So how does that work? Well, I think even the most sort of dogmatic and closed-minded Christian would agree that we were granted the divine spark, right? It says
Mhm.
in Genesis, God breathed into the nostrils of the man to give him life.
Yeah,
And I think that's a really fascinating and misunderstood idea. Like in the new age, and I myself have been guilty of this earlier in life of getting confused on this point. Like a lot of the new age, they'll be like, "You are God, I am God, we are God." But
right.
I don't see, I don't really want to take responsibility for everything everywhere all at once. Now, in fact,
Yeah.
like that sort of new age mindset and psychedelics will sort of make you feel that way too, and can
Mhm.
the God complex. It sucks actually, because if you start to really internalize that, then everything just it makes things scary, you know. I don't know how else to put it. It makes things scary, and like uh anyway, I won't belabor on that subject. Suffice to say that divine spark that is within all of us, I think that it's the spirit that animates our body vessel that is God,
Mhm.
rather than we ourselves as our ego self is as being God. And why I really think that is because, first of all, the my body is what tells me everything I need to know when I'm doing divinatory work or tuning energy work for people. Like I have a whole system of communicating with my body that kind of developed organically, but now it is extremely 100% reliable.
Nice.
And yeah, like I get certain feelings and sensations in my head and in my ears whenever I'm getting like a hit or a clue on something. So it's kind of like water. You could say that there's water in your body, and then there's water in this cup, and then there's water in the ocean, and there's water in the clouds. But really, when you think about it, is there actually any separation between the waters in any one vessel and any of the water elsewhere? I mean, we're in
Not
water
really.
right now. The air has water
Yeah.
in it. So in the same way, I think that the animating spirit that brings life to all things and is your life force energy, it's also what is causing the wind to blow and everything like that. I think that it's as inseparable as water, in the sense that the life force energy animating you and animating me is all one ocean of life force energy. And that, as a
Yeah.
totality, you could call God. But if that is true and there's no separation between the animating force or spirit of any two people, then that would explain, in my opinion, why you're able to do energy work that actually benefits people. And you can, you're shown things, or things, and actual results take place despite being vast distances apart from each other, yet it's all instantaneous, right?
Yeah.
I think that that's what it is. I think that the divine spark granted us is literally God. Like, I don't see how anyone could have any kind of like theological gripe with that. I'm saying that the reason why you're alive is God. Like the thing
Dude,
that makes you
here's
alive,
what
right?
you said, son, about the body and the way that you have these like signals in your body that you've learned to read. Um, like the old school Christian in me that like I'm still aware of it, and I'm learning. It's kind of a cool experience where I'm like hearing what you say and I'm open to it, and then the old school Christian is like, but this is what they would say, and I'm like, interesting. How is that? Why is that such a stumbling block for them? Because they teach you that the body is fallen, that your flesh is wicked, that basically they're it's really damaging. Like the way I look at it
It's
now,
retarded.
it's like your flesh is totally sinful. Everything from the flesh is bad. And that's maybe not like actually true when you read the scripture, but that's how it's interpreted and that's how it's taught. So every desire of the flesh is a bad thing. So that's a huge hindrance from people learning one of the most for my life, and I think for most people in this era we're in, is learning to feel and interpret these things in your body and learn what your body is telling you. Like there's innate wisdom there because it is sitting in this water soup energy spark of life that you're talking about. So I hope that people can like listen to this and hear it because they all have these experiences. Everybody, once I peel back the layers and talk to them enough, they all have an experience of I felt something and it made me do this and it actually was a good thing. You know, it saved me from that. My dad talks about it all the time. He's like old school Catholic. Um, he's my dad's like 83, and he tells me all the time when he was in the Air Force in Panama or Vietnam, there's a few times where one of his friends in particular, like Air Force isn't a big uh, company, basically. Like the Army is like the biggest, Air Force is pretty small. So, you know, it's interesting when you meet somebody and then you see them again somewhere else and you were thought about or you felt that they were going to show up the minute that they showed up before you even knew that they landed. Like my dad has had that experience, and you know, he's not into like biofield tuning or anything. He's just a regular dude, but he's had these instincts in his body and it shot up to his mind a vision of his friend walking in the door, and then he turns around and there's his friend walking in the door who he hadn't seen in like 7 years. So this stuff happens all the time if people will just sit quiet and listen. And to me, that's what the Holy Spirit is. It's like that water you were just describing. To me, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, man. What you're talking about though, that whole like the body, the flesh, all these things are
Mm,
physical, the fallen world. It is the most ridiculous ideology. But it's like there's so much I could say about this, but
yeah, it's it's a big swamp. Talk about swamps,
well,
dude.
it's funny because it's like the new age Gnosticism thing. You know, the world is created by an evil demiurge. It's a prison for our souls. It's a big loosh farm.
Right.
It's basically the same as a lot of mainstream Christianity's belief about this place too. Just
Shockingly
it's
so. Yeah.
shockingly so. And what's funny is like the ideologies that this derives from, this interpretation of scriptures, I'll even say, not necessarily everyone's interpretation. It is straight out of the pagan world. And I'm not saying pagan in a derogatory sense. Reverend Robert Taylor, the guy from the guy who was a priest, and I think he was a priest, maybe he was Protestant, but he started to do the research of like where, what's the history of Christianity. He wanted to sort of maybe prove it out, but
Mm.
found that it it has no authentic, unique roots, and it comes from much older stuff. And he says and Dylan says this quote all the time. Dylan Secotio, friend of mine, he says Christianity and paganism are as different as six and half a dozen.
That's a funny quote.
So we're talking about divination, which a lot of Christians see as evil, right? But
Yeah.
what do they call the leaders of the church?
Depends on which church, the elders maybe, or the
Fathers, right?
fathers. Yeah.
Yeah, almost any church they'll say father, whoever. I mean, sometimes it's become brother, but the word father. So in Latin, that's patere, and in Sanskrit, with the Hindu language, is pitar or pitar. Pitar sounds a
Mm.
lot. Sounds familiar. Then in Hebrew, the word ptr, pet resh. I'm sorry, pet tav resh, which is the same exact vowel or a consonant as Peter, right? And you could even consider when you're doing philology or researching words that the consonants are the bones, but the vowels are just the filling. And you can put different filling in there and you have the same thing.
Mm.
So anyway, this PTR in Hebrew which is usually transliterated as patar, it means to interpret, like to interpret dreams, like a prophet or a seer.
Yeah.
And that's, this, who else had this really, really deranged view of human life and the body and all that were the Druids.
Oh,
And
really?
that's not a popular opinion because now Druids are like cool forest loving, shape shifting freedom fighters and stuff because of video games using Druid as a name or D&D version of Druids and all that. But the original Druids, they would find an oak tree. They looked for one that had arms that were horizontally like a crossbar.
Yeah.
So they were looking for an oak tree that looked like a cross. And that cross, if they didn't find it, they would put a bar of wood across it so that it would be a cross. And anyway, they would write on the bark, they would write the word Hesus, Hesus. Does that sound familiar? Hesus?
Yeah.
It's one of their savior gods. Tarmus on another branch, and then in the middle would be Belinus. And then above, by all those words, they put Thou, which is the name for like the top god. Anyway,
Thou. Is that like thou, like the Quakers?
Yeah, and you actually see this in many languages. The word for like the is also like as in the bag or the building, right?
Mm.
It would also be the same word or close to the same word as God. Like, in Spanish, the word the is El. Well, El is a name for God, right? Yeah. So you see that a lot, which is interesting. But anyway, they would do their whole like grove outdoor cathedral thing with this tree that's across, and they would do sacrifices there, man. they
Like
human absolutely, when you see Jesus with two thieves being crucified with him, that's straight out of Druidism. The Druids had the first people they would look for to do human sacrifices would be anyone who had committed a crime. But then and now think about Jesus when I say this. I mean, Jesus, same thing. they would if they didn't have like criminals, or if they had someone that they could use for this that fit the description, they really liked people who were extremely well loved and good people. Those were the best sacrifices. Anyway, the word.
I always wondered where the cross came from with the Romans and all that, because it wasn't Romans, like it was something else. But
oh man, the cross goes back really far. No one knows the original maybe origin of it, but that's a side weave. I'll just finish out talking about the Druids to say that the Latin name for the Druids were the Vates, which is fascinating because Vates were the prophets or seers and all that. But the letter V is a tricky one between languages. You might see it switch from V to B, but you also might see it shift from V to because B is so easily interchanged with P, and then P is so easily interchanged with PH, like the F sound. So Vates is basically the same word as fates, like Fates. And then because of the way that people will, think about how like a New Englander says their A's, comes out kind of like an R, like there's an R in it. British people are extremely infamous for that too. So like Tarmus is basically the same word as Themis or Tamus. And Tamus is one of the like dying and resurrecting fertility springtime gods of Mesopotamia. Tarmus being one of the names that they would put on the crosses, the Druids would. So anyway, this word Vates, which is what the Latins called the Druids, is just a very slight hop, skip, and a jump over to Patar or Pateres, the fathers. And I think that it's the same system that's been, occulted the whole time. and probably the reason why when the Roman Empire decided to do all of the occulting of the previously existing pagan system and call it all their own, to the point where they're like, appropriating buildings and temples that were already there and then just saying, actually, it means this now, right?
Right.
I think it's because it was like an authority move. A lot of the history that is accepted as ancient history of the world is very easily debunked, but it's required for this mosaic history thing to exist.
Yeah.
Mosaic history being absolutely the foundation of a lot of people's worldview, especially in the Abrahamic religions. Yet, we have some of the oldest written histories of the world that are accepted by the mainstream as being the oldest histories of the world, like Herodotus, who wrote the book on history. He's called the father of history, yet he never mentions Moses or the parting of the Red Sea or the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem, or I could go on and name things from Mosaic history that he never mentions. Or why does the book of Exodus not mention the pyramids in Egypt? There's a lot of problems with Mosaic history, but you have to have it in place as it is for the passing of the baton of authority in the various monarchies that became later governments. And for the Vatican, it goes on and on.
I wonder if they had like what you just mentioned about the pyramids in Egypt. I don't know if you heard Narco Longbow on Owen's stream, and I've heard some of this stuff from people before, but that was like super interesting. This idea that the Bible stories took place in North America and Europe potentially. I think who was it that was talking about that about France? How a lot of Pontius Pilate is buried in France, Mary Magdalene is buried in France, like all these characters from the New Testament are actually buried in France, like with tombs and stories like from the tribes, or from the towns. Like Mary Magdalene had this festival in some small town in France, and I found it weirdly by researching diatoms, like diatomaceous earth, and I found this spiky dragon character drawing from this festival in France that had this festival to Mary Magdalene, because the story was she came over there and tamed this dragon. There's the whole thing, Mary and the dragon, and then they killed the dragon and celebrated it. And I could look up the name of the town, but
that comes from a dispute in the mythos of who's crushing the head of the serpent under their heel. Is it the son or is it the mother? And it gets confusing because the mother and the son are actually the same being. It's a 3-in-1 thing. Probably those tombs you're referring to, I haven't looked into those specifically, but usually what goes on is there's some pre-existing mythos revolving around the fertility goddess and her son, who is also her lover, who dies and is resurrected or is sacrificed and resurrects. And they'll usually just attribute that to whatever the current popular mythos is. And it's always been that way. Kind of like, you build on top of the city that came before, and that's now underneath the ground. And as far as I did hear Owen talking to Dr. Longo. I'm going to talk to him myself soon.
Cool.
And I really liked that episode. I think I might be an interesting host for him because I'll probably push back against some of the claims. In others I really like. I'm mostly excited about all of the old world Florida architecture and
the tree
inexplicable
thing is really cool,
things by the mainstream, and also the stuff about the Gulf Stream is super good gravy. But and even about Finland, I have a different take on it all. But it's just the problem I have is the Bach saga.
The linguistics is interesting, but it doesn't.
It comes from one guy.
And
we're supposed to assume that all that is true. I mean, he might have got some things right. I'm not saying that it's 0% right, but it's not like people treat the Bach saga like it's a new revelation of a divinely inspired scripture or something, when it's like one guy who was super fruity like sucking his own dick and stuff. And
Yeah.
he's somehow the prophet that gave us all the truth about the ancient world going back millions of years. Come on, let's be reasonable here. But I'm not saying there's nothing good in it. But I will talk to Longo soon, and that ought to be interesting.
That's going to be
But
cool.
I think in terms of the Old Testament stories happening in Florida or in the Americas, or the New Testament happening in Europe, there's lots of people that have made those claims. But I think that the most likely truth is that the stories are all myth. They've always been a myth. And, you know, the fact that you can find the same fingerprints, keys, etymology, and language going back as far as we have stories, period, including South America and Mexico and
Yeah.
the New World, as it was called, also in Mesopotamia, also in Asia, also in India. Like, it seems definitely the case that somebody took this mythos around the world, but if it was ever anything but allegory, what it is based on, if it has any historicity at all, is so far gone in the obscurity of the far distant past. It's pointless to try to say this is that and that is that. You know,
Yeah, that's
we're
true. We're
dealing with
not,
mythology, and we ought to just
yeah.
leave it in the literary tradition rather than try to, because as soon as we start saying this is definitely that and this is the historical truth of it, and then now we have a new reason to be divided and fight amongst each other, and I'm the special boy who knows, and it's super dumb. I'd rather just keep it in the realm of literary analysis,
Yeah.
where it all belongs, like all scriptures.
Yeah. I think there's layers of stuff going on. Like I'm on board with the mythology side, but I also see because of my own life and other people's stories where it's like mythology plays itself out in your lives. Um, Sort of like going back to that water that we're all in, that we're all connected to. It's like this energy that pushes and breathes life, and like we're playing out that energy and manifest in physical form. Um, but like one thing to like set all that stuff aside, because like I like exploring all these different things, but there's like this central vein that I keep coming back to that I'm still curious about, and I see it like I was watching this show Rome, which isn't like a great show, but like I'm curious about this idea where they're like, oh, pray to the god so and so, and then do this for the god so and so. I think for the plebes and for most lower class, they were actually like, oh, let's pray to God, whatever. But what they're not telling the people is that like Crows from Crow 777 says these are aspects of nature, and it connects back with like the ideas of the tarot, which some people are turned off by, but you can't. I don't know what that was, but it's like this reproducible. Like you could look at it scientifically, and you could find patterns. You could see this, almost like you can like start seeing if you could feel braille, and then all of a sudden just be able to see what it's saying. It's poking through from all these different directions. We've got astrology, we've got the sky clock, which is astrology, but I like to call it sky clock because it's just it's so precise and it's so divinely tuned for everyone's lives. And when you really look at it and not just look at the newspaper horoscope, and you should look at what it means, the patterns of it throughout history and time, it's all over the Bible. There's sky clock, there's astrology stuff written all the way through the Bible. And your average Christian will talk about stuff in Revelation as they're, getting really excited about the end of the world. And I'm like, dude, all of Revelation is showing you celestial signs. And that goes all the way back to the beginning of Genesis, when it tells you what these things were created for. They're created to tell us the signs and seasons. And that to me is one of the
Canst thou
biggest.
bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the
Yes.
bands of Orion?
Yes.
Canst thou lead forth the Mazzaroth in their season? Or
Yes.
canst
That's great.
thou guide the bear with her sons? That's from
Exactly.
Job.
Yeah. Bears in the sun. That's the,
By the way, Job, the book of Job, if you remember, I said B and V are interchangeable. Job is Jove.
mm,
Oh, that's the name for Jupiter or Jehovah or,
yeah.
etc. Zeus.
Yeah. These patterns, they come out from all these different places. And Um, nobody has to do anything. You can just bury your head in the sand and ignore it and pretend like, you know, life just happens to you. Why, oh, why am I in this predicament? Or you can look at what tools we have available and you'll understand what it is and you'll start to grow. And that's, I believe, probably the central point of why we're here, I think, is to grow and experience. It can be a louche farm hell prison on earth if you want it to be, or it can literally be us, those of us that could see and want to move forward. We can just go forth, I believe, and create anything we really truly want to create.
Yeah, within reason. I don't think that I could create a life where I'm a like an Asian woman.
I mean, we have the technology. You can cut your dick off today.
I'm just gonna keep my original pronouns.
Exactly. No,
You
yeah,
know,
within
my
the
thoughts on
realms of reality.
astrology. I love researching astrology. It's a huge component of my show. I'm not so much into like fortune telling
Yeah.
in the sense of like the gypsy, oh, I see death in your future and all that. Actually, I remember I knew a guy a long time ago who was terrified of tarot and things like that because he had got his cards read with a friend by like an actual like straight up gypsy, and they're like, "You are going to die," and then that guy died, and so he's like, "It's all evil. He should put a curse on us." Anyway, I don't think that you really need astrology to tell you what's going to happen.
No.
We know that right now it's April and it's going to keep getting warmer, right? But in terms of like the ancient world, astrology would have been a really, really useful tool to have encoded allegorical stories about what happens in nature at certain times of the year, when reckoning the year was also a lot harder because, we didn't have the data sets that we have now or the tools that we have now. So it's like great to have a story for every part of the sky. And as long as you sort of, that cross of north, south, east, west, you have an idea of what part of the story you're looking at. And then that's great, again, for navigation, seafaring. And that's where a lot of this comes from, and how it got spread around the world is because the people that spread the stories and the sky clock were using it so that they could navigate. And to me, that makes total sense. But
yeah,
you don't need it for telling your own future. I don't recommend looking at it that way. But I do love how if you study astrology, and I tend to be a little more like just the retrospective view with this, with my life and with astrology. I'll see that a certain transit just happened and I'll be like, oh, wow, something, I just got a bunch of money unexpectedly out of nowhere. And whoa, that perfectly fits with what Jupiter was just doing, or, what Venus was just doing, or something like that. So it's a really cool tool to help you feel like in sync with the whole world and with all of nature, and to show you how connected everything is, that there's no such thing as chance or coincidence or accident. And, other than that, no one needs astrology, especially not to the level that it kind of gets, I see why some people are turned off by it, is what I mean.
Yeah.
That there are those who get as obsessed as possible with astrology, and like everything is the fault of Pluto, or, they just don't like Scorpios. So as soon as you find out someone's a Scorpio, you're not going to be their friend. Or that's me. I don't like Scorpios that much, but just kidding. Yeah,
No,
I think it's
like
really, really great study, though.
awareness.
It shows you the clockwork connectivity of everything in this creation, makes it quite obvious that this is some kind of divinely inspired creation. And, that's sort of my take on it. You could take it or leave it. People don't have to use astrology. No one's making you, but it is a really good way to understand, or to get to help yourself out of a more materialist or like nihilistic type of view.
Yeah.
That obviously there's purpose, and I don't really even need there to be much more purpose to life than life. Like, to me, it does kind of seem that way. Like, maybe the meaning of life or the reason for life is so that we can exist.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad I exist. I love existing. I want to keep existing. I would like other people to have the opportunity to keep existing. I don't think there's actually a choice. I think that existence will continue to exist regardless of what anybody thinks or does. So I'm
Yeah.
just going with it.
I
You
like it.
say that the thing that people can flip around though in their own head is, especially when you get the knowledge of like the biofield anatomy, that everything that goes on in your body is a message from your inner self. That actually applies. A big thing that really helped me was I started interpreting the events of my life the way you would interpret a dream. And it
Mhm.
turns out that it is the exact same thing. That what happens to you in your waking life has the symbolic relevance as anything that you would interpret out of your own dreams.
Yeah.
So, just in the same way that an injury to a certain part of your body carries a certain message with it, so does every external event that goes on, and every chance meeting or every conflict. They all carry some kind of meaning reflecting your inner state back to yourself. So
Yeah.
life isn't something that's happening to you, you're happening to it. And that's like, you really want to be in that place where you feel that way about life, that your inner world is directing the outer world rather than the outer world shaping your inner
Yeah.
world. Because in the
Exactly.
latter posture, even if you don't realize it, you are a victim. If life is happening to you, you're either a victim
That's huge.
you're receiving welfare.
Yeah, because people that like we the astrology types that may be prone to victim status versus victor mindset. It's the same thing
Most
as
astrology types don't get too victimy about it, though. I would say most people that go
there.
deep into astrology are pretty.
There's a lot of
They get a lot of self work done.
yeah. There's a lot of good guidance out there about how this tool is used, where it's showing you potentials. It's showing you, it's about learning and growing and like becoming more aware. Yeah. So, and then also
My
don't make it an idol. Like my last guest talked about that. And I'm like, yeah, I never would even think like that. Like I'm going to make it an idol or I'm going to base my life off of this. But I guess there might be people who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to check this out. And then pretty soon they're like, I don't know, sacrificing cats under a ash tree. I don't know.
that's what a lot of like hardcore churchy and Christians don't realize is they're about half an inch removed from sacrifice cults. And
It's
the only
basically,
thing
yeah.
the only difference is that they're considering the bread and wine to be the sacrifice,
No,
and
I
that it's
literally
actually
drink
blood.
blood every like, dude.
Yeah, you know who came up with that whole bread and wine was the Buddhists. That's their thing, because
Okay.
they thought that it was wrong to harm living creatures and wrong to eat meat and stuff like that. They were the original militant vegans. So
Mhm.
their sacrifices were of bread and wine, and we still see that going on today. I mean, back to that idea of like the vates, the fathers, the diviners, the word. What language is it in? I think it's a Celtic word. No, I'm sorry, it's Chaldean. It's the Chaldean word. It would be spelled Bet Dalet Aleph, so like
Mhm.
BDA. Chaldean is basically the same as ancient Hebrew, and same alphabet as the Phoenician, which it turns out is just a variation on the same alphabet that the ancient Greeks had, and that the ancient Irish Celtic peoples had, or the Gauls, you would maybe call them. Anyway, this BDA, Beda, that's basically the same as Buddha. That this word meaning like a diviner, prophet, or seer, it's the same word as Buddha.
Hmm.
And
Which is probably why they
this,
called him that, huh?
yeah.
Because it wasn't his real name, right? It was like something.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Buddha has about 1,000 names.
Hmm.
So you go through the list of names of Buddha, and it gets really revealing, actually, and shows you that everything is connected, and that Buddhism is one of the oldest versions of whatever we're calling the universal wisdom tradition. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I'll let you steer me.
Dude. Okay. Yes. So I wanted to jump in with that. Like another thing that I've learned about the way that I look at astrology. It's like when I was doing my handyman business, I got a little carried away, to be fair, and I would buy tools to do jobs that I didn't know that I could do. But I have a lot of confidence and I'm like, I'll figure it out and I could do it, but I couldn't do it without the tool. And so I was just
That's a
continually,
clutch, by the way, what you just said.
yeah,
Get the tools, and you'll figure it out.
exactly. And that's how I look at a lot of these things. And I have like this, like no fear on all this stuff. Like I grew up, with the Christian upbringing that, non-denominational, but like I know it all. I read the Bible, you know, fervently as a young kid of my own accord, not with someone else trying to make me do it, because I was really curious about the knowledge
Me
and
too,
wisdom
man.
that was in it. Yeah. And there's tons of really good, interesting insights. But when you can expand and not expand um, like bringing in things that are false and trying to couple it to things that are true, it's like just seeing more of the truth and more of what it's there for. It's not just there so that you can go to, you know, Harvest Baptist Church on the corner and give $10 a month to the preacher. Like there is so much more to all of this, way more than I ever was explained or told. And it's so helpful. Like speaking of tools and tool belts, um, my wife and I were going through I mean, we're okay. So my wife and I were separated. Um, but I think it's a good thing. And that's because it's like whatever we had to learn, I feel like has run its course. And I learned so much. I was exposed to so many different methods and modes of like understanding myself and understanding her and kind of looking at the situation. And we had this counselor, this marriage counselor that was a astrologer, this older guy. And it was amazing that he could go in first session after looking at both of our charts and then looking at the charts overlaid and read so much into us accurately to help us understand the dynamic and present it to us so that we can then work with it and start, and it affects your choices. So you're confronted with, okay, these are some of your patterns. This is um written in the chart. And it's pretty obvious to me like that she's, holding on to this emotional thing and I'm holding on to this emotional thing. And I need to process it. But I wasn't aware of it. And she wasn't aware of it. And it's just really, really helpful. Like when you really are trying to get your marriage in line or trying to figure out the conflict, whatever it is, if you keep having these like this hamster wheel of conflict, there's these tools that have been here for thousands of years that can just be like, oh, that's the problem. And then you're like, holy shit, like we could have saved like a year of conflict if we would have just seen this stuff. So it just goes down to like, what do you have available to you? And are you earnestly seeking the truth? That's really the biggest part for me. If you're seeking the truth in Christianity, I believe like you'll see it. Like you'll see that they did divination and it was helpful. Like they cast lots. I mean, they're probably throwing like finger bones or something, like who knows, but it says it right there. So you don't need to have
Yeah, man,
fear.
what you just said is really, really great. It's the perfect way to use astrology. A lot of times when I'm talking about this stuff, it'll sound like maybe I'm anti this or that,
Mhm.
just because priestcraft is the absolute worst scourge upon humanity that's ever risen.
It's
doesn't
pretty
mean
gnarly.
that
It is pretty gnarly.
doesn't it doesn't mean yeah, it doesn't mean that there weren't. It's like I said, there's nobody's all good or all bad,
Mhm.
especially true for groups of people. So there are good priests,
Yeah.
definitely, that joined it for the right reasons. There are good, then there are bad people in organizations that you would think were good or that they're doing bad things, whatever. You guys get it.
Yeah.
So astrology used in the way you just described, or divination as you just described, is where the biggest amount of gravy is at. Like my wife and I, when we first met and I started courting her. We
Mhm.
had my my court astrologer. Her name's Kaylee Burkana.
Okay.
She's actually doing a live stream right now. She does them every Monday. I'll have to catch the replay. But
Mhm.
Kaylee Burkana on YouTube. It's a great Monday show where she like does tarot cards for each of the signs and also tells you a little bit about what astrology is happening that week. Really, really cool. It's
Nice.
fun. Anyway, she looked at our charts and she told us about our, where we're compatible and then where, as they call it in astrology, where the squares are at.
Mhm.
And squares are where the, like you would say, bad aspects. And that's one thing that a lot of people with astrology really shy away from is they don't want to talk about their bad aspects. They want to be like, oh, I'm a Leo, I'm the life of the party, but they don't want to talk about like where they're their Mars is squaring with Saturn somewhere or whatever, and what that
Right.
means. And that's actually where the most opportunity for growth is, at where the bad aspects are. So even calling them bad is kind of, you know, all things serve good, actually. All things
Opportunities
serve
for
God.
growth. Yeah.
Yeah, even bad. Bad is the same word as what I just described. Uh, that root word for Buddha, Bade.
Mm. Yeah.
God is the author of good and evil. And if you're churchy and you can't accept that, and you want to say that no, Satan is the father of lies, already you've misunderstood where the concept of Satan even came from. Satan means adversary or opposer. It's referring to oppositions in astrology. That right now we're in Aries, and the Satan of Aries is Libra, because in the wheel of the zodiac,
Mm.
they're across from each other.
Yeah.
So everybody gets to be Satan sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, how
uh,
dare you?
sorry guys, there's no such thing as Satan. Didn't mean to burst your bubble. I know you really like blaming your masturbation on Satan, but it's if the opposite of Satan is Jehovah, and Jehovah is a word that means life or existence, which it is, then the opposite of existence is non-existence, which means Satan does not exist. The end. Let's
Oh,
go.
boom.
Let's go.
Checkmate.
Let's let's quit blaming our problems on the invisible
If
boogeyman.
you had
All
a
right.
hype man, he would be like throwing papers and running around the room.
Yeah, but
That's fascinating. Yeah.
you ever feel like there's the demonic problems going on with yourself or with somebody, or like you're in a haunted room or some shit?
Mm.
Just tell them what I just said. Just be like, your boss doesn't exist. You're free to go.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
usually, demons flee the scene. They go into the light when you tell them that.
Yeah.
Every time. It's super fun. Anyway, this whole idea of squares, bad aspects, like you're talking about with between you and your wife, and how the counselor was showing you that, they are so awesome to know about, because it's going to show you things that you're often blind to about yourself. It's going to help you feel more compassion for your partner, and not be like, how do you not notice this obvious thing that I can tell is going on with you, because they have a blind spot there themselves. So
Hmm.
now, instead of bashing heads over those blind spots, or all that, step on each other's toes or blaming each other, you're watching each other's back,
Yeah. You can
right?
help each other.
Like they say, squares are places where, this is what I say about squares, or bad aspects in astrology, is they can either be a place where you get stuck, or they can be something that bonds you. So if you, like, the key with squares or bad aspects in your own personal chart, or especially in a relationship chart, is once you know they're there, then it's on you to take action. I call it taking action on the square. I need a better catchphrase for that, but you totally
Mm.
start taking action on the squares proactively, and they become the biggest opportunities to grow and bond and care for each other more. So,
Yeah.
like,
That's something this
it
guy
always comes down
showed
to
me.
communication too.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for this dude. Like he his name is Glenn. But
Shout out Glenn.
yeah, he he was showing that like no matter what relation you have, you're going to be paired up with somebody who's going to have things for you to work on, and that's like divinely set up that way, because the mission, I believe, is to make you better, but you have to accept it. You have to willingly take on those tasks. And it's just such a valuable lesson for myself. And then I could have compassion for my wife, even though I was frustrated and everything, but I could see one, like the standard psychology route of difficulties in how you were raised, and then why, you know, like why you were born into that family. You can even see things like this, like for whatever reason, like on the Christian side, God put you there, well, with astrology, you can kind of see more details about why and how God, what path is there to like learn and grow from it. So it's like I don't see any separation, and I don't shrink from it at all. I do like people like you and my last guest that were like, you know, don't make it everything, don't turn it into an idol. Cause I'm like, I can kind of start getting excited and just be like, fuck it, everything, do everything with astrology. It's tempting, but like stock trading. I'm really fascinated. Like if you could dial this in, you could probably really own the stock market if you really, really knew what you were doing. But I haven't
Yeah,
seen
JP
anybody do it.
Morgan famously said, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do.
Oh, dude, I quoted him last stream. I didn't even know it. I've heard that. I've heard that saying, and I've repeated it many times.
Yeah,
But
Gravelers always wanted to
dude,
keep that knowledge out of the hands of the regular folk.
so that goes back to my original point. Was this knowledge is out of your hands? It's in their hands. They're using it all the time. Um,
And
and I'm
imagine
all,
with big data collection,
yeah,
what kind of astrology knowledge is available to the big data farmers that goes so far beyond what we have passed down from the ancients, right? They're like,
yeah,
oh, there's a roadkill. There's 3 pieces of roadkill on a 1 mile stretch of land. That means that the that means there's going to be like a good price on rugs in Bolivia. Like,
yeah,
who knows? I mean, it's crazy what could happen with big data.
yeah, yeah. And like just not being a victim, not just letting life happen to you. My wife actually taught me a lot about astrology because she's an astrologer. She's very, very intelligent, has high pattern recognition. But what she was talking about that with if you're unaware of it, she can look at your chart and just see like exactly like what you did last week and like all this other stuff going back. It's like you're predictable, extremely predictable. And if you're aware of it, now you have creative insight and choice because every single one of these things, like the quote unquote bad aspects, the squares, they're opportunities, but there's not in astrology at any one of these quote unquote bad spots, there's always the duality there. So there's a good aspect and a negative aspect, or a helpful or a non or an obstacle. And if you're
Yeah,
aware,
your biggest challenges are your greatest strengths.
yeah, yeah, it's cliche, but it's freaking true, you know. But the the personal responsibility, I think, is what I'm getting at. Where let's stop just going in the river and just letting it take us wherever. Let's start to paddle the freaking canoe.
Boom. Yeah, I love that, man. I learned from my mom when I was a young child that you always have a choice in everything, and I feel like that maybe was the only thing I ever needed to be parented on.
Mm,
I mean, not that they parented me on all kinds of things, but if you know that you always have a choice, then it's pretty hard to take the victim posture unless you pretend like you don't.
yeah, exactly, dude. And the victim stuff that like we talked about that and I was on the verge of that realization where I'm like I think I was taking a bit of a victim posture. Finally was able to kick that and I think it's help from a lot of the stuff that I never would have touched if I was just stuck in my old you know Christian upbringing that was very
Especially with
useful.
partners, man.
Yeah.
It's so easy to make them the bad guy in your
Mm,
mind, and
yeah.
they're the closest to you. Oh man, that's a
Dude.
really hard place to be. I've been there. I feel for people that have been there, that they've made the person closest to them the reason for all their own dreams not coming true. It's
Huge.
yeah.
Dude, that is such a powerful thing for people to grasp because and I'm still figuring out, I'm still integrating this, but I had this amazing journey, you know, going out to California, doing body work with Yerasimos, learning about somatics, learning how to like listen to my body, like we were talking about earlier. Um, Old military me would have been like, that's fucking gay. But like, dude, super powerful. And it led me to some really deep insights that helped me shed these layers of victim consciousness because I was, you know, feeling unloved in my relationship, feeling like, poor me, she's so mean or grumpy or whatever. But through somatics and being able to feel and access things in my body through body work, which can be painful, which I think is helpful. The pain is actually a really good teacher sometimes. Um, but I was made to realize that the way that I was perceived being treated was the way that I was treating myself on a deep subconscious level from failures in the past where I was beating myself up. and that was manifesting in my life, almost like I had a moment where I'm like, dude, if is all this like a freaking video game VR thing? Because I know it's not, but I was like, kind of got a little peek behind the curtain where I'm like, man, if I start treating myself better, this will stop. And
Yeah, and
it,
that's
it kind of
so
did.
opposite to usually like the whole boot camp mindset of no pain, no gain. Not saying pain is bad. Pain is a, like you said, a teacher, and also it is a message. The biggest thing you could
Yeah.
do wrong with pain is to ignore it.
Yeah.
Actually, the more attention you give pain, the less painful it is. But
That's interesting.
yeah, what you were just saying is so crucial, and it's probably was beat into you to a degree that to be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
That was actually, I think one thing I learned from tuning people is that we're all way more similar than we are different. And I can fully relate to what you're talking about.
Mm.
My ex was always very harsh and mean to me and talked to me like I was an annoying dad.
Mm. Yeah.
Like made me so upset. But what I didn't realize
Gosh.
is, until
Yeah.
later was like, oh, this is how I feel. That's actually how I feel about myself,
Mm.
or I did back then. So
Yeah.
it's super helpful to come to that understanding and then start putting it into practice where, oh, if I don't like how the people close to me are talking to me, I should work on how I talk to myself. I should work on my
Dude.
self-talk. And it's
So
sort of
normal. Yeah.
treated like, especially for men, but women fall into this just as often and just as easily probably, but that like you need to motivate yourself with beratement.
Mm. Yeah.
The best, yeah, at the point where I started doing really, really well and have been on a huge nonstop flow state ever since, I realized that I'd made it when my inner voice, like that inner dialogue where sometimes just thoughts come into your head unbidden, used to be like, oh, you're so stupid, or like, wow, you're an idiot for doing this or whatever. And then my mental voice at one point shifted to being like a cheerleader. And
Nice.
I would literally like hear this voice in my head, like, Chance is crushing right now. Chance is doing great. And
I love it.
I was like, sweet. I encouraged those thoughts. And it's not like I just sit there and pump myself up with flattery or anything, but the fact that my unbidden dialogue would be supportive and positive, to
Mm-hmm.
me that was like the moment when I realized the moment I definitely turned the corner, and abundance in life and all needs met easily, and having extra and not having to do
Nice.
shit I don't like anymore just because I thought I needed to survive. All that stuff will shift and go away and be replaced with what you actually truly want when you start talking to yourself like you already have it. Like, because you do. We have the gift of life. We have all the potential in every moment to be as fulfilled as possible. And that's really what the opposite of frustration is. The
Mm-hmm.
opposite of frustration is satisfaction. And that's why gratitude practices are so clutch. Like, if you can actually invoke the feeling of being grateful in your body, or the feeling of satisfaction with, say, you get so in the habit of saying thanks over your food or blessing your food that before you even say the prayer or the blessing, you feel the sensation of like a pleasurable feeling in your body, like a tingle, excitement, and like satisfied feeling before you even start to eat. Then you're doing then you've got your sacral chakra energy in a good place, that you can, before you even say the words, you feel the feelings that the words would
Mm-hmm.
represent. And it's like this with qigong too, that if you don't feel the energy in your body and through your meridians when you're doing the movements, then it really can help to imagine what it would feel like. And then start imagining, well, what should it feel like? Imagine the feeling of energy going through my arms, or an energy ball between my hands. And then before you know it, you're no longer pretending or imagining, you just feel it.
Yeah.
Like, our body actually works that way, that sometimes we need to develop the language that we want to speak to it with. And then, through the practice, eventually then it will start responding with the language that we programmed it with, in the terms of like fake it till you make it. That actually works exceptionally well with bodies and with energy, that like energy practices. That gratitude can be empty words when you first start doing it. When you first start blessing the food, it's sort of like maybe a mechanical thing, but you can get to the point where you don't even really need to say grace to feel thanks. And then, like, in my opinion, that's where you've really made a difference for yourself at that point.
Dude, that's super on the money, on point, straight down the center. Man, there's so many lessons in there that like if you made it this far through this episode, like this is where the real stuff is at. This is like, I believe, probably the central like beam, laser beam taking you on to your journey and destination that you already like you are already on. You already want it in your heart, even if you're not conscious of it. But the more you can connect to that part, which is another thing that I kind of had umbrage with Christianity, was where they talk about how evil or deceitful the heart is. And like the heart is the seat of God in your being. It's where you commune with him. And when Chance is talking about feeling this gratitude, you're feeling it in that center, in your personal holy of holies, to take a metaphor. And that's where all of this stuff is created. When I went through the military stuff that I was in, I felt it, and I saw myself, because I wanted it so badly to pass like the Special Forces selection program, and was
You were in the
literally,
special boys selection program?
I went to special boy class. Yeah. And I felt it for like, I think it took me like a year. I went through selection one time, didn't pass, still really wanted it. Took like, I think almost 2 years to go back. And that whole 2 year time period of like, all I thought about felt was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. It would be so awesome to do some crazy adventure. And then that swept me along so far that like when I finally went, I had a broken foot because I trained way too hard. And I started day one with a broken, like a fractured second metatarsal, which is like one of the bones on your feet in the middle here. Super painful way to go
Right
through.
foot, wasn't it?
Left foot was the first one.
Oh, it's the left foot.
Wait, no, you're right. Right foot. Yeah, left foot fractured at some point during the course. I came out with two fractured feet, but it started with my right foot. How'd you know that?
Well, you were dealing with trying to overcome a particularly gnarly obstacle to get where you wanted to
Ah,
be. The right foot is usually about, challenges on our path,
dude, see what I'm
in a
talking
sense.
about? See how useful this stuff is?
Yeah, I had a I had a right foot thing a couple months back where I was playing fetch with the dogs, and I threw a ball, and then I tried to like chase down the ball before the dog could get to it, and I was going to kick the ball to kick it away from the dog because he was lunging for it, and I
Mm.
accidentally kicked the dog in the head,
Oh no.
and I like bruised my foot pretty bad. And I couldn't exactly figure out, like, I love the path I'm on. Why is my right foot taking a hit right here? What's up? And then actually, Eileen heard me do a podcast with Alex Zek where I talked about
Mm.
that story. And in the podcast, I had referred to how, like, wow, Alex podcast, The Way Forward, is huge. He's doing really well. My show's kind of small, but everything's all right. But compared to his, he's really doing great. And Eileen's like, you're kicking yourself for not being as far along in your path as Alec is. And
Mm.
your dog representing you, you're kicking your dog over it. You're kicking yourself over it. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's pretty accurate. Yeah. And then, if people are probably, if they're not super familiar with the biofield anatomy, maybe a little lost in the sauce on it, but it's like we have an energy field. It's
Mm.
a 6 feet bubble space around us in all directions, roughly. And depending on where there is stuck energy in that field, that represents beliefs or about ourselves or expectations about life that are holding back some of our energy from us. And when we get an injury, based on where that is on the axis of up, down, left, right, forward, backwards, um, like, for example, a guy that I did a tuning with, he had a lot of stuck energy in the neck to the point where he had this sort of growth goiter thing going on his neck. And he hadn't put two and two together that when he was like, I don't know, I think he was like 9 or something. When he was young, he got hit by a car and broke some vertebrae in his neck. And so sometimes we might heal the physical injury, but the energetic trauma is still hanging out. And then something else will happen to the body there later relating to it. But anyway, I wanted to you brought up the heart, and I wanted to give a little, on the fly analysis of the word heart, because I've been thinking about the whole H to C or CH interchangeability lately. Another letter interchangeability is T and D. It's super common. Like I live in
Dalit. Yeah, it's in Hebrew, right?
Yeah, and I live in Southwest Missouri. So in Southwest Missouri, people do this all the time, or in further south even more. But like instead of saying ruined with a D at the end, they'll say ruined. You ruined it. So this type of stuff isn't just because some alphabets have different letters, and not others, but because people actually change the way that things are pronounced based on where they live and how people talk there. So if you do the interchangeability of H to C and the T to a D, then heart becomes, what does heart become? It becomes card, right? And what do they call exercise that gets your heart rate up? Cardio.
Oh, cardio.
So card and heart are philologically the same word. So card, as in like the cardinals of the church, that's a word in the Latin that's referring to like a hinge or gate. So that's the door that needs to open. Your heart needs to open for Dio, God, to come in. Cardio.
And Tio in Spanish is uncle. That's probably not related, but
Tio and Dio. Yeah. No, there probably is a relation, because usually in the mythos, there's like oftentimes an evil uncle who usurps things, and like think Scar in the Lion King. Maybe that's actually a super common pattern in the mythology cycles.
Yeah, and then the heart and chart came to mind.
Oh, and Scar even has car in it. Hey. And car, nice. A car is like a vehicle, so the heart is the car of the divine spark,
Nice.
And the heart is super amazing. I mean, it never stops. Do you ever just think about your heart and just go like, thank you for never stopping? The whole time I've been here, you've been doing this. Wow. Yeah. Thanks for that. That's pretty amazing. I can't think of anything I haven't stopped doing even for a second.
Yeah. Have you seen the Chestahedron?
No.
So Frank Chester, which chest?
Oh, maybe I have heard of that.
So the shape Chestahedron is, if you could imagine like an internal framework that holds up the outside profile of the heart shape, like your actual physical human heart shape. It is this perfect shape called the Chestahedron. It's a 7-sided, I think it's equilateral. I don't know, something. It's amazing. But Frank Chester was this artist that was doing stuff with geometry and discovered this Chestahedron. And through understanding how this shape fit within the heart, he actually started to understand that the heart was not a pump. It was like an energy vortex. So it was like working through implosion, not explosion, which is...
Yeah, I think I watched really cool. a little doc about that. Maybe it was on Matt Presti's YouTube channel, but that's super helpful gravy. Your heart is not pumping things through, but it's more of like a cavitation suction type action.
Yeah. Do you think that has anything to do with the kind of like the philosophy, the law of attraction type stuff? Because there's something there. I have some issues with the way that it was presented in the movie, but since your heart is like physically, energetically sucking, pulling things to it, that's kind of how I feel like how my spouse and I ended up together, because we were both had these things that needed to be fixed in us and we needed to work on it. And it's like we definitely, like, if you knew my whole story with that, like we were destined to be together, it felt like. And I think we had to work on these things. But yeah, the whole suction of the heart pulling things into your life. What do you think about that?
I think for sure there's something to that. Looks like Rob Edwards had Frank Chester on, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Rob is a good dude. I just Googled the chestahedron and he's doing something right with SEO because it came up in the image search. Nice one,
Nice.
Rob.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that there's, at least metaphorically, there's something to that. As someone, you were saying you have left side issues. The left side is about like letting go and also receiving. And why
Mm.
would those things go hand in hand? It's because if you don't let go of what you already have, then you can't hold on to something new.
Mm.
So I believe that that's totally how it works in life is whenever we let go of stuff that no longer serves us or however you want to put it, then there's an opportunity for something new to show up and it will, that's like a big aspect of you happening to life rather than life happening to you is that
Yeah.
being able to trust that if you how would I put this? I think it's Topher that talks about how this is the realm of like where you get what you want.
Mm.
I 100% think that that's accurate, that we actually get whatever we wish for in some form or another, you are going to get it. So part of that is letting go of wishes that are not bringing you good things. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, man, that's a deep, it sounds surface, but it's like, dude, there's something deep there because getting what you want, I've thought about this for years. And like going back to the Bible, like we're always taught, well, I had this pastor that
Sometimes
had
it's a
a,
punishment to get what you want.
yeah, yeah. And, or like, you may not even be aware that what you're saying is what you want or what your body, your vibe, the way you treat yourself, the way you talk to yourself. I'm working with a coach right now, my friend Arabella. You met her at Music and Sky, and I'm learning a lot about this from her. And I think it's uh, fortuitous that you bring that up, and this is kind of like the central thing for her and my work right now, is letting go and then allowing. But it's what you said about wanting something. I'm starting to realize, yeah, like a lot of times people don't want to own up to this, but a lot of times the shit situations you find yourself in, you actually kind of wanted it in a way. Like you want it to be hard. You want life to be hard because you feel like if you're not working hard, you're not achieving anything. And that can kind of trap people.
Yeah, especially see this a lot with people in energy getting stuck in the left ankle, actually.
Mm.
Going back to, I brought up how the environment energetically when someone's born and when they're an infant has such a huge influence on their life later. It's because in those formative years, up to 6 or 7 years old, more so at the beginning, and it tapers off as you get up to about 7, your energy field is wide open, and you're feeding on the energy of your parents to survive. I mean, you're literally got a boob in the mouth unless you're unlucky and you're a formula baby, which that causes a lot of issues down the road
Yeah.
energetically as well. But if the environment of the home, for example, if like mom and dad are in a lot of conflict, say dad has got anger problems and he's blowing up all the time or threatening mom or threatening siblings, the stress of that environment forms an expectation on the baby that life is supposed to feel that way. And so they will bring things like that into their life as they grow up and throughout their life until they resolve the belief that they were unconsciously holding, that they're only comfortable when they're under stress. I mean, there's a physiological truth to this. People can be addicted to cortisol
Mm-hmm.
and adrenaline and other stress hormones and things. It happens pretty frequently. So, in terms of why that shows up in the left ankle has to do with being able to identify the causes or things that are causing you stress or fear or anxiety, and then being able to move away from them. So, if you're somebody that's had a lot of, like say the back of like the Achilles tendon is sore for you on your left ankle, that would be because you are obscuring from yourself the causes of your stress. Like you won't let yourself identify where the stress is coming from. Or say you kind of more roll your ankle or there's more of a front of the ankle injury, then it's like you are averse to moving away from what it is that's causing you stress. It's kind of like being in quicksand or something. So
Mm.
that dynamic has a lot of people drawing to themselves situations that reflect that core belief that they're only comfortable when things are scary or tense or there's anxiety. They're addicted to anxiety. But a good way to flip it around, and you can do this even whether or not you have a bad tendency towards the things I just described, is to realize all the emotions that we identify as bad or like negative or don't want, or we push them away. Like, what is emotion? It's a feeling in your body that then you interpret as to have a certain meaning. So
Yeah.
with anxiety, the feeling in your body with anxiety, the worst thing in the world you can say is like, I have anxiety and my anxiety doesn't let me do this, or I have social anxiety, all of that. Horrible way to paint the picture of who you are. I'll just
Mm.
never say that again.
Yeah.
The feeling of that people label as anxiety turns out, and this is true if you just think about it, what I'm about to say, the feeling that you label as anxiety is the exact same feeling as being really excited about something. In fact, the word anxious, before the modern psychologists got a hold of it, that's actually what anxious meant. Some old folks will still say, like, I'm real anxious for supper. And what they
Mm.
meant is, I'm really excited for supper. So it's the same feeling. Or think about um, the feeling of anger that, again, like the scenario I described a moment ago, dad being abusive or angry or threatening or violent to the rest of the family when you're a baby. A lot of times in that scenario, the person will become so averse to the energy of anger that they completely drop all ability to assert themselves whatsoever. They're like, I'm just a chill dude. I'm pretty laid back.
Mm.
I never get mad. What that actually means is every time the emotional energy that we correlate to anger comes up in themselves, they stuff it down deep in their heart and they say, don't come out. You can't, we don't feel that. And they don't even know they're doing it. They don't
Yeah.
even know they're doing it. They're hiding it from themselves completely. Uh, but what you can do with the anger is realize that if you, we all know about bottling up annoyances until eventually the pressure builds up and you explode in like a rage. Obviously, that's not good. That's not healthy. But if you can get yourself, and tuning is really good for this, if you can get yourself to a zero balance and you're not in debt, like anger debt anymore, and then you agree with yourself that when I feel annoyed by something or when I need to assert myself about I don't want this, you'll actually communicate it in the moment that it happens, and you drop the whole story of I don't get angry, angry people suck, drop that entirely. Then what will happen is when you actually feel that sensation in your body, because you don't have like a backlog of it and there's not all this pressure, it'll come out like just normal assertiveness or healthy aggressiveness, because we need to be able to be a little aggressive or a little assertive at times. That's why the energy of those emotions exists. In the same exact way, you can apply what I just said to grief or sadness and realize that it's the exact same energy as joy. I
Mm.
know that doesn't sound,
That's a
that
very,
might not sound
yeah.
right at first, but you can't have one without the other. So, if you're feeling really sad, then you can do the same thing and realize, oh, the energy of the sadness I'm feeling, I should go into it and allow it. And, just the same way that putting attention on pain makes it less painful. If you put attention on the sadness or the grief, it'll inevitably lead you to realize what made you feel those feelings. And it'll be like, because of how much joy the person that you miss who died brought you, right? Because of how much happiness you actually have the capacity to feel. That's why you have sort of this empty, hollow feeling
Mm.
of grief going on. So all there are no negative emotions. There's just uh, dumb interpretations that restrict the flow of that emotion and cause it to stagnate, build up in pressure, and lead to health problems or, bursting the pipes one way or the other.
Dude, that was so beautifully said, dude. I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to that and like internalize more of that, dude. Yeah, the anxiety being excitement. that's exactly what I'm feeling like a lot right now, because I'm starting this new business, the natural art form, and I'm like, I really want it to do well. And when I connect, like we were talking earlier, to that good feeling, how would I want this to end up? I start picturing, like, if I'm building this big company, what would it look like? And then I get really excited and I connect to that feeling and feel the gratitude. Um, and then if I start feeling like I'm not moving towards it enough, it can start feeling like anxiety, but really I'm excited. I just need to move. I need to take action. I need to um, sometimes even just sit down and just go back to visualizing how I want it to look like and just get really pumped about it and then go forward and do it.
Yeah, you nailed it. Whenever, like, I've been doing podcasts for a long time now. I don't know, 6 or 7 years. What is it? Yeah, like over 7 years. And so you'd think, oh, he doesn't get nervous about it anymore. And you're right. I don't get nervous, but I do have the energy that people would call anxiety before I go on shows sometimes, my own show or other people's shows. And what I do with it is I recognize that. So attached to that feeling that people would call anxiety is exactly what you just said. I want to do a good job. I hope I do a good job. I really want to do a good job. So if you have that voice running in your head about anything, I want to do a good job. I hope I do a good job. That's because you're being given the gift of energy to do something with it so that you will do a good job. So like, rather than, like, if you sit there with that feeling of, I hope I do a good job, I hope I do a good job, and you just let it run and you don't do anything with it, it can lead you to sort of flub up or have a confidence shaking experience. But if instead, like, what I do with it is, when I feel that way, like, hope I do a good job, hope I do a good job, I translate that into some kind of preparation. And I just do some prepping or writing out of notes or something that is, related to what I'm feeling the feeling about. I take some action, preparatory action, and then that ends up like carrying whatever the show is to a really good place, because now I'm even more prepared. And also, when you're prepared, you feel more confident. It's not like you're not going to have like crippling self-confidence issues if you prepared well. So like, people can take this to heart. I hope that whenever you feel that, I hope I do a good job feeling that's bordering on, man, is this anxiety? Well, it will be if you don't do anything with that energy, because now that energy didn't get to go where it was meant to go. That energy was coming up. Think of it as a gift so that you can do a good job like you want. Do some prep, channel it into something, and then you'll feel great. There will be no performance issues. There will be no confidence issues. You're already doing it, so you get it.
Yeah, but you definitely have to have the reminder, this, like, inspiration and motivation. It doesn't just sit with you and stay all the time. You have to kind of hunt it down. And what is it? Zig Ziglar. I love that guy.
Yeah, when it comes up,
Yeah.
seize that shit. Exactly. You don't have it for everything. So like, think of it as a gift rather than being bushwhacked by some boogeyman and anxiety demon.
Right. Yeah. Dude, I love that quote from Zig Ziglar. Um, this is like the first self-help book that I ever read when I was leaving North Carolina, coming back here after I left the army. Um, but in his book, uh, Better Than Good, it's a great book. And his quote about inspiration was, inspiration doesn't always come to you. Sometimes you have to hunt it down with a club.
That's, his first name's Hillary, so I get it.
What?
His first name's Hillary.
Who's Zig?
Yeah, Zig.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I just Googled him. His first name's Hillary. Wonder if he's related to Killary.
I don't know. I've never, I
I'm
have to
just kidding. I'm
rethink
just
that a little
kidding, man.
bit. Now that I know that a man is named Hillary, I'm like, okay. Was he one of the one eye club?
Well, look,
Oh.
everybody's
Okay.
got gravy. He's probably cool. You
Dude,
got
he's
something good out of it.
super
That's
cool.
very
Yeah.
good.
That's really funny though, because, like, yeah, I didn't know his name was Hillary. It's, you know, you got to razz. I'll razz him in the afterlife if we bump into each other.
Perfect. Yeah. And then, I just thought about how people call Hillary Clinton Hillary, but hey,
Mm.
that's an H turning into a CH. Hillary kind of
Yeah,
makes
we're just
sense.
doing what's natural
We're just doing
linguistically.
what's natural. Natural
Hillary.
AF.
Yeah, natural AF. I love it. Oh, but yeah, I think we're up on 2 hours about, and this might be a great place to end it, man. But
I
man,
feel
we could
that.
just keep going, you
No,
know.
this feels like a real natural stepping off point, I think. But I'm happy to come
Yeah.
back again anytime.
Yeah, this was so helpful, man. Thank you. It gave me a lot of really good stuff to think about. And I always like bouncing the ideas off because like I'm new to a lot of this stuff, the tuning. So if people want to check more of that out, definitely pick up that Biofield tuning book. What is that called again from Eileen?
Oh, tuning the human biofield. Let me
Tuning the
pull it
human
off the shelf here.
biofield. Okay. Yeah. I've actually got it out in my living room on my bookshelf. Haven't read it yet, but I'm going to be pouring into that, I think, because what you did was so spot on and quick. That's a great book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
So,
you're not really trying to learn that method, but you want to know more about how your energy systems work in your body, she's got another book called Electric Body, Electric Health,
mm,
which is also really good. It's a newer one. Yeah, I was kind of wondering, and now that you've had some time to reflect on it, what is your impression of the tuning that you got, or maybe what was your wife's impression?
um, okay. So I think what I've learned about me was a big part of that self understanding of where I was subconsciously holding resentment to myself and needed to let go. And I think there's still more of that that needs to happen. It's a kind of a process of it sort of, little bits and pieces chunking off. And maybe, I don't know why it's so, uh, I don't know why it clings so well to me, but I'm learning more and more like, okay, here's another layer of the onion that's come off. Part of that, I think, and I'm grateful for it, but part of it did, I think, change to where I wasn't beating myself up so much. And, the partner in my life that was not really beating me up, but was feeling very negatively towards me, uh, chose to go elsewhere, and that you know was sad and kind of gut wrenching, but it was also like I'm very grateful for the whole thing, which is a beautiful lesson inside of that difficulty, which is part of what I think I'm here to do is to have some really difficult lessons and find those beautiful truths inside of that because I think I mean, it's hopeful. It helps other people. Um, and we left on she left on good terms. We really care about each other. But where I'm at currently, I can't move to the south where she would feel more comfortable. She needs to be in a warmer climate. She can't handle the cold. It's freaking cold in Wyoming. I think there's still snow on the ground here. So, but I learned
We have
so
like
much.
flowers and shit.
Dude, we
Everything's
just got
great
some
here.
green grass. Like we're just but in the future, like I'll be going elsewhere. But it's just for whatever reason, God brought me this divine challenge and caused me because I'm like seeing the mirror, which is a relationship, is a divine mirror. Um, and I saw things that I needed to fix, that I needed to let go of, that I wanted to be better. I wanted to see my higher self um, prevail. And the biofield tuning was really helpful for seeing some of those spots that I can't see just in my own life, and it's like blind spots. And um, I actually don't have the recording from it, but I remember you talking a little bit about some of this, maybe about like the higher self or like um some aspect of that. But like I would never have even sought you out or connected or vibed with you, I think, in the same way if I wasn't going through those difficulties. And I wouldn't have sought out Erasmus and made so many good friends there, you know, Joel Rafidi and like all these others. Like it's so beautiful how this all comes together. And then what I'm knowing now is because of what we talked about with the water and everything, the vibration from the tuning forks affecting the vibration that travels instantly across um, all planes. And yeah, for me it was a beautiful shift, and it kind of like freed up stuff, and I'm learning to let go. So um, I'll probably do. more with you in the future, just to like the more in tune that I become to look and see and be aware of what changes and shifts with a newfound awareness in the future. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool, man. I love that idea. Yeah, I think you'd be a lot better off with like a yearly tuning than a doctor's checkup.
Mm, yeah, I agree.
And it's not something people need to do a lot of either, in my opinion.
It's
Maybe for like
potent.
some
Yeah.
seriously difficult acute health situations, 2 or 3 in 1 month might be good. But apart from that, it's like, you get to see where the hidden kick me sign was on your back that you didn't realize that you wrote and stuck back there, and you get to take that off, and
I
uh,
love the way you put that. So good.
it's like that. It's kind of
Yeah.
like that.
Cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, man. Yeah, super valuable. Go check him out. The InnerVerse podcast with Chance Garton. He's got some of the cool, like just amazing guests all the time. And then the conversation usually dipping back into linguistics, which is always fascinating. But that show has been a lot of fun and eye opening. And is there anything else, any other projects that you got going on that you want to launch out to people?
Well, if people do like the whole religious, mythological, astrotheological syncretism with language and philology put in it, like my buddy Gabe says, philology, which is like the love of logos or the study of words.
Hmm.
Philology is lockpicking.
Oh, really?
It totally is. It's totally how you get through some gates and things that were there to obscure
Yeah, I could see
you.
that.
All of
Yeah.
a sudden, what was the hurdle or the obstacle becomes the key, and that's perfect metaphor for life. The obstacles are the course. It's an
Hmm.
obstacle course. Go to the hurdles, not away from. Don't run away from the hurdles. You will be disqualified if you're running the 100-meter hurdles. So
Boom.
so yeah, if people like that stuff, I have a series of audiobooks that I've produced for Dylan Secosio. Dylan is an absolute crusher and amazing, great friend of mine. His book series is called Spirit World. Like, world is spelled WHIRLED. There are 6 books in the series. I have done audiobooks for book 3 and 4 and almost done with book 5. And then I will take on book 6. The whole series is worth it. I would, no joke, if it was me, if I was you and I was interested in this stuff and it was new to me, I would start at book 1 and maybe even get the ebook and the audiobook and listen to it while I read it. Because sometimes, I'm not really like this, but I know a lot of people are, where they see a word they don't know and they're just like, ugh. They don't know
Mm.
what it is at all. Sounding words out is tricky, or you don't know the rules of how things would be sounded out in different languages. I had to learn some of that, like learn some other alphabets to do the audiobooks, and it can be helpful to hear it and read it. I think both are valuable, but in general, I just recommend those books, whether you get the audiobook or not, or get the physical book or both. Like, I have all versions of all of them. I
Nice.
think they're super valuable. They have them back here, actually.
Yeah, let me see one of those. I don't know if I've seen the cover of them. And I'm going to definitely look at the audiobooks because that's my jam. I'm going to be doing some long drives this year, so that'll be nice.
Yeah, this is book 5 that I'm working on right now. I'm about 90% done producing the audiobook and doing the narration. The Holy Sailors.
Yeah. Dude's a legend, man. He wrote like what 3 books in a year or something crazy or
Yeah, last year he really did a lot. And he's still on the same level of hustle.
yeah.
He's got a Substack now, so he's been doing a lot of writing that doesn't really fit into a book, but you can go to his Substack, Dylan Secosio. Find him
How do you spell
on
Secosio again?
Instagram. What's that?
How do you spell Secosio? I always get that.
SACCIOCCIO.
Okay. I'm going to put all this stuff in
Secosio.
the show notes and links to the books. Yep. If you have any links specifically to where they can purchase, um, maybe just shoot that to me in a text
Oh yeah,
after
if they go,
this.
that's a great question. But if they go to my website,
Okay.
innerversepodcast.com,
Let
and
me
they
do that.
go to the shop tag, there will be a link to one of the books, July's End. It looks like I need to update that with the other audiobooks I've done. And also in the description of like every episode of my podcast, if you look through the show notes or the description, you'll see links to the ways that people can support InnerVerse. They can join my Rockfin and get premium content there. I've got a Patreon. You can get an AquaCure machine at a discount. Brown's gas, hydrogen inhalation. Loving that lately. Clive DeCarl. I've got a affiliate link with him. Tippecanoe Herbs, really great herbal medicine. You can do the InnerVerse coupon code with that. So lots of ways to support the show without really being any extra out of pocket, and you get something that would be good anyway. Like you were talking about allergies, Tippecanoe Herbs. You should talk to that guy, Kyle. That guy's truly a legend. We have speaking of astrology, we have a series of going with Kyle.
Dude, I love that
my friend
series,
Michelle,
by the way. Yeah.
Where we're doing the astrology doctrine of signatures of different plants and what their qualities are and their virtues are, and how that pertains to the times of the year in the sky clock. But like right here is one of his tinctures called Allergies No Sneezy.
Dude, I love his stuff. I like the names. I got the best bug spray when I was at the festival, at the Bertaria Festival. Phenomenal.
Oh yeah, he was there. That's where I met him.
Yeah. Yeah, that the bug repellent, the stuff you buy in the stores, this is like 5-second spiel. Don't spray poison on your body. It goes into your bloodstream and it kills you and makes you gay. So buy the good stuff that's herbal and natural. And
if you're lucky, it'll kill you before you turn gay.
Yeah.
Just don't even use it though. It's not worth it.
Exactly. So Tippecanoe, the herbal blend that he had was freaking awesome. So shout outs to that guy.
Yeah, you should talk to him. He's natural AF. Get him on here.
Yeah, I'll be seeking him out shortly. So
cool. He's the man. I got to hang out with him last week. Actually, he came down to check out his property that he bought in Missouri, and we went to breakfast, and yeah, we hung out for a couple of days. Good times. Oh, we should, as you know, as they say, land the plane.
Yeah, let's land the plane. But like, we'll do this again, and we'll talk some more.
Yeah, I love hanging out with you, Isaac. Man. You're the man.
You too, bro.
And you know, all your sharing of your own journey and some of the vulnerabilities in that. I hope you realize how far you've come and how whole and strong you already are, and that it's just up from here. I feel it, man. All good, all the time.
Yeah. And I'm very blessed and thankful to meet awesome friends like you along the way. So I'm here for the journey, dude. It's been an awesome time, and I look forward to our next chat soon, man.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next time. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Natural AF podcast. My guest, Chance Garton, and be well. Wasn't that nice? That was great. That was a great chat with Chance. Learned a lot from that guy. He's always got some good insights. So if you like the show, please share it with friends and family, coworkers, and don't forget to check out our store at buylegday.com. You can support the show also there. I got a few t-shirt designs coming up on board. And also I will be in Los Angeles at the fight that I talked about. I'll post it, somewhere here. And we'll be promoting that and sponsoring an athlete for a trial period, seeing what they think about leg day. I just had a cool experience with it today. I was doing some breath work stuff, and sometimes when you do the rhythmic holotropic breath work, you can kind of get tetany in your hands, and your hands will cramp up, and it's these muscles in the forearms getting very charged up with energy and electricity. And when it got really intense, I actually took some of the leg day and put it on, and almost instantly it was like my hands just unlocked and it was fine. So yeah, anything dealing with muscle cramps, it's legitness. We're going to end this out with another song from I Love. This one is perfect because it's snowing here again. This song is called Melt. Enjoy.